Hi, good morning. I'm back with another video after getting a feedback that a lot of people don't have elastic at home, and so to be able to mobilize the resources that you may have, I've tried another design, and I have come up with this design which does not really compromise on fit still, and is easier to tie than the regular ones that are available in the market, which have ties coming from these two sides and then need to be tied like a surgical mask at the back. Usually that's quite a deterrent because it's not very easy to tie it up yourself and to get the right fitting on your face for the mask to stay on for the purpose of giving the right amount of protection. So if in your own house you do have a ribbon, dory, or any or even if you can stitch a flat string, like you have the the string for our bottoms, the salwars, the nada, what we call, you could use any of these methods and still have a mask which doesn't give you difficulty in tying it up. So I'm going to start just from the basics. I have taken, I planned a paper plan, and with this paper plan I have 8.5 inches over here and 6.5 inches over here. That is the height, the length, and the width is 8.5 inches. You can see I have added seam allowances. There are seam allowances on 3 sides, one side, second side, and the bottom side. And the nose side is the fabric has a fold, so it's called the fold of fabric. Now this draft of course initially was made for the darted pattern, but now I'm going to not do the darts. That's the only thing I'm going to avoid right now, and I'm going to instead try and make a casing for a string to run through it. The pleats are, there are 2 pleats. You can see that they form like this, and it gives you a correct measurement of about 3 or 3¼ inches once it's done. The pleats face downwards, you can see, and for marking the pleats on the fabric or transferring the pleats on the fabric, you can see I have notched it here because there's no point marking it on the wrong side. Finally, the pleats have to be made after turning the fabric inside out. Once that is done, you will again place this pattern over your piece, over your stitched up piece, and then you will mark through these notches, you will mark the lines for making the pleats. Let me show you what I have achieved here. Now you can see pins. I have done little hand stitching under these pins, but since it was matching color, it's probably not visible. To make it more visible, I have put these pins. These pleats are facing downwards, and this row of stitching, which was not there in the darted pattern, or should not be there in the darted pattern, is now a casing. It's the same thing. The string is moving from here. Same ends were left unstitched on this sides and on this side and on this side. And now the portion that was under the chin, it was left open. There was a space over here so that you could turn the whole fabric inside out after you had done the 3 stitchings. Now this is the very hole that I have used to bring the string out. I'm going to wear it and show it to you. Well, I hope the pins don't poke me, but I'm still going to try. And I will tie it up to my size, whatever that size. I can leave this string a little longer as well. You can see that it's fitting very well. It doesn't have the the cumbersomeness of tying a mask from here till the back. I'm easily able to tie it with the comfort of a front tie, and this is not going to look bad. A nice colorful bow hanging over here is not going to look bad at all. So to start with, if I cut my fabric in the same manner as I had the earlier one, I've got marking on 3 sides, 1, 2, and then the bottom fold of fabric. I have marked the seam lines with a black pen here, you can see, and I've left this unstitched. I have left this unstitched, leaving again this much portion unstitched and leaving 4th portion unstitched and 5th portion, which is here under the chin. You can see here, this is also unstitched. Make sure you do a little back stitch over here, and each of these also make sure you do a little bit of a back stitch over here to secure it. Otherwise it's going to be a weak spot. It's going to open up easily. Now a lot of people have said that they don't have a sewing machine at home. Well, this is very easily doable without the sewing machine. You know, it's hardly like 6 inches, another 8 inches, and another 6 inches. That's all the first sewing that is required. You can use a running stitch to do it. You know, a running stitch simply just goes one up, one, you know, little up, little down. Make sure you make a little fine stitch and not a very large one, because that will compromise its strength. And I recommend that you do something called a strong running stitch. A strong running stitch means you do 3 running stitches and take 1 back stitch. I hope you all know the back stitch. Back stitch means that you don't go forward. The next stitch is taken from 1 step back and then gone forward. Now a strong running stitch will give this required strength in the seam and it will not open up, as running stitch simply is just not very strong. So once you have done the stitching from here till here, secure the ends. Next you've done the stitching from here till here, secure these 2 ends so that they are tight, they are fastened properly. Then you stitch from here to here, again secure the ends. Leave a gap again, 3rd gap, and secure it and stitch it, do your running stitch and secure it till here. So now you've got 4 openings for the sides and 1 opening for the string to come out, which is at the chin area. This is all going to be done with a strong basting stitch. It's also called a strong running stitch. After this, you know, what you're required to do is to clip off these corners, because you know they're going to give a lot of bulk in this area. So clip off these corners. Make sure you don't cut the stitch, the stitch corner, and turn your fabric inside out through this hole that you have kept. So you'll just need to pull the entire fabric out and iron it. Again, ironing is very critical to any good production. So we iron it out so that all the pieces, both the pieces, that means the seams that were there, are actually forming the fold line and not slipping to either side of the pattern, either side of your mask. Now we don't do any darts for fitting in this, and so what we have to do is we have to make sure that there is place for the string to not only go in but stay in its place. Otherwise the string is sort of hanging here and there and you'll get, you know, extra fabric on your face or something. So we do what is called making a casing. Make a case for the string to run through. String, ribbon, dory, whatever you have at home. So I've shown you this. I've done a running stitch here, which is not very visible, but you can see that I've marked it with pins, and these pins sort of create a tunnel or a path or a channel for the string to move through. Can you see this? Yeah. So it's the same over here also. At the bottom also it's going in, and on this side also I can pull it in and out as much as I like. Okay. The next is the pleating. Now when you're doing hand sewing, of course over here also it's all hand sewing. This also you can do a strong basting stitch or a strong running stitch, and for these ends I have done sort of an overcast stitch. An overcast stitch means I made the fold and I pin it up so that the pleats don't open up, and once the pleats are held with a pin, I've taken my stitch, my needle and thread, and taken it like this on all the 4 or 5 layers that are there, gone on and on like a circular motion. You've gone from here back to here, back to here. So it's called the overcast stitch. Those of you who have learnt overcasting would really know it, but otherwise any method could work. I mean, you know, whatever way you can secure these pleats is perfectly fine. Even if you do it with a strong running stitch or whatever method you want to use, you know, you just want to tack it up, use just 2, 3, 4 strong stitches like we use for button attachment, even that is fine. As long as your pleats are secured on both the sides, pleats are equally formed from here and show a nice line here, it's a perfect mask to wear. I hope those of you who wanted to work with your hands have got enough input now. In case I have missed out something and there is a query, please do feel free to ask me and I'll be happy to give more details on this. Thank you. Bye-bye.